Hi, this is Kim with the Everyday Sage, and this is the first in a series of travel videos. This is going to be Westminster Abbey today. This was our first full day in London, in England, and I hope you're going to enjoy this little walk through the Abbey. You aren't supposed to video in the Abbey, and while I saw many people doing it, I started when I first walked in, so there's a few videos here, but I wasn't aware, so you're going to see many photographs, but very few videos in this particular montage here. When you first walk into the Abbey, the first thing you want to do is look up. You're overwhelmed. You're amazed at the immensity of it all, as well as just the feeling that you are standing in Westminster Abbey. And it is really amazing. And when you go to the Abbey, they're going to give you a little headphone to wear for an audio tour, which was a little cumbersome, but overall had some notable information. I strongly advise that before you go, if this is something that you're really interested in as a history fan, look up who's there, look up where they are, look up the people that you want to see, so you know ahead of time what to expect, and also to allow enough time to see everything that you want to look at. And this is the nave area, the center portion of the Abbey, looking towards the front door there, the front area. There's so much beautiful stained glass. This is the tomb of the unknown soldier. And here, just look at the ceiling. Look at that Gothic architecture. This is looking towards the choir screen. This is a close-up of the choir screen, and you can just see how intricate the detail is. It's just beautiful. This is, have you gone through the choir screen? This is the actual choir area going towards the altar, looking back towards the screen now. This is the choir area, and that's the organ, which we didn't get to hear, but I can imagine how it sounded. This is the altar. This is where the coronation, this is where the weddings take place, and where the royalty sits during those events. And this is me next to Anne of Cleves. Anne of Cleves was Henry VIII's fourth wife. This is Anne Neville. Anne Neville was the one-time Queen of England and wife of Richard III. Richard II here. And there's going to be so much statuary that I'm going to be showing images of that I just thought was beautiful, because you can see how intricate everything is and how much of it there is. But this lady in particular, notice the graffiti across the top of her, and just imagine who in history left that there. And I thought he was rather dapper, very handsome. It's also surprising to see the colors. I don't think I realized how much color there were on these memorials. You expect granite or marble or gray, but you don't expect the level of color that just kind of brings the people there that are memorialized to life. Another beautiful ancient door. This little lady lost her hands at some point during the last 400 or 500 years. William Shakespeare is memorialized. However, he is not buried in Westminster Abbey. He is at Stratford-upon-Avon. And there's many, many notable authors. This is William Wordsworth. This is William Blake. Rather somber memorial. Jane Austen. I'm going to have more about Jane Austen in a later video, because we saw many notable areas related to Jane in Bath. Many musicians. And then Charles Dickens. This was also another significant one for me. Charles Dickens did not actually want to be interred at Westminster Abbey, but due to his popularity at the time of his passing, that's where he was placed. That was Charles Darwin, Michael Faraday, Henry James, Rudyard Kipling, Thomas Hardy, Sir Laurence Olivier. Again, I highly recommend looking up who you want to see before you go. Lord Byron, Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking is an area very close to the actual choir screen. Stanley Baldwin, he was very instrumental in the abdication of Edward VIII in the 1930s. There are so many table tombs throughout. And so many that are just so beautiful and so lifelike and just really speak to the talent of the artists that created them. I was especially drawn to the smaller statuary as well. And look at the detail. Look how intricate. And imagine the time and the effort that went into creating these. And this is Sir Isaac Newton. He is part of the choir screen. And this lady was just beautiful. And it's so interesting to look and see their faces because these are visual representations of the people that are entombed there. So you're looking at their style of dress and their hairstyles, and this is how they were supposed to look. This was created based on how they looked at that time. So it's like looking into the face of someone from 300 years ago, and I find that so fascinating. This is a little map I just put together showing some of the specific burials and entombments throughout the Abbey. Again, I definitely recommend knowing who you want to see and where they are. We spent about 4 hours at the Abbey, but I definitely could have used more. I could have stayed the entire day, the time that they were open, especially if you visit the Queen's Gallery, which I'm going to talk about very shortly. But the Queen's Gallery is going to require additional time beyond just the entombments. Now, here's the tomb of Queen Elizabeth and Queen Mary I. This was another really big one for me. On my bucket list, here's the line waiting to see their tomb. And it was very emotional seeing it, you know, something you've read about since childhood and seen, and there you are next to her, to them. And near the tomb of Mary and Elizabeth, remember before God all those who divided at the Reformation by different convictions, laid down their lives for Christ and conscience sake. Now, Elizabeth is actually interred on top of Mary's entombment. Mary passed away in 1558, and Elizabeth passed away in 1603. For reference, Mary I is quote-unquote Bloody Mary due to her prosecution of Protestants during the Reformation. And this is the Lady Chapel. Here you'll find Henry VII, his wife Elizabeth of York, and also Margaret Beaufort. Henry VII, if you are a Tudor history fan, you have to see Henry VII. He's the start of it all. He became the head of the Tudor dynasty and King of England in 1485 after he defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth. And he spent his whole life trying to get to the throne. So it's fascinating to stand next to him and know this is where he is. This is his mother. This is Margaret Beaufort. And Margaret is a fascinating character in history. She was very instrumental in getting her son to the throne. She was a devout woman. She was extremely wealthy, and she was one of the most powerful women in England or the world at that time. She was also Henry VIII's grandmother. Now, this is Henry V. Henry V, another amazing English king, most notable for winning the Battle of Agincourt in 1415. He suffered an injury at a different battle, the Battle of Shrewsbury, which is an arrow went through his face by his nose. And in my blog, I'm going to link a video that talks about that injury and the surgery necessary to remove that arrow. And it's really fascinating. This is Queen Anne. Queen Anne was a tragic figure. She suffered ill health throughout her lifetime and 17 miscarriages. This is King William and Queen Mary, and they are most notable in the United States for having founded the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. And this is Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary was not originally interred in the Abbey. She was moved in 1612 by her son, King James I. And he erected this tomb, this memorialization to her, which is just stunning and closely replicates that for Elizabeth I. He did this for a mother he didn't know. And this is going to start the images from the Queen's Gallery, which are taken from the Westminster Abbey website. Now, this is mine, but you have to go up a very high staircase to the attic area of the Abbey, and you're on the other side of that stained glass window shortly. And in the Queen's Gallery, you're going to see artifacts and just items that you're not going to see anywhere else. There's going to be clothing items, and very specific things related to their funerals, their effigies. And this, for example, is the head of the funeral effigy for King Henry VII. And I've seen this in history books since I was a little girl. And the way they have it displayed, I'm 5'2", and I was eye to eye with Henry VII. And this was taken from a death mask made shortly after he died. So it's supposed to be the most accurate representation of the man. The effigy head actually had human hair on it, though there's little that remains now. But again, Tudor history, that's a must see. This is actually the chest that belonged to Margaret Beaufort, his mother, and it's amazing that this survived. And if you look at, for example, look at the hardware, look at the locks, you can imagine her keeping her secret papers there, or things that she didn't want other people to see, and her having be the only one that possessed keys to this trunk. And so I just find those details so fascinating. Her prayer book is always there, which is, also there, which is such an intimate item that it was really amazing to see that which she would have held in her hands. There was no videoing and no photographs, so that's why I don't have my own images that are more specific. Another thing that they have there is the largest collection of funeral effigies for the kings and queens of England, which were just really phenomenal to see up close. And this is, again, from the Queen's Gallery, looking down the view from the upstairs there, and you can see the altar, and you can see the shrine of Edward the Confessor, and this is where the coronations take place. So what you're seeing here is something that can only be seen in the Queen's Gallery. So for an additional £5, it is absolutely worth going. I probably spent close to probably 2 hours there going through everything. So that was pretty amazing to see. And once outside, this is in the cloisters, the courtyard area. Just lovely. Again, it's the same Gothic architecture and many, many interments. If you look closely to the left here in a second, you're going to see a little interaction between two people, and I think is so sweet. I didn't notice it at the time, but I did after the fact, and I just love it. Isn't that nice? And I was interested in this ancient door, but that was really nice, and there they go. And another one of the amazing doors. And if you can just imagine who during the last 1,000+ years have touched those doors, have touched those handles. Those type of details fascinate me. And here is the throne. And it is behind, glass in a separate little area. So that's as close as you can get to it, but it's such a notable piece of history, and every king and queen in history has sat here during their coronation, so it's fascinating. This is where we had lunch, and this is called the Solarium, and it's in the monastic cellars of the Abbey, and it's a little cafe. My husband's actually happier than he appears in this video, but it was just, average traditional lunch fare, but it was really nice to spend that extra time in the Abbey to have lunch, and I had soup across England, vegetarian, plant-based. Sometimes there were limited options, but there was always soup. And I thought this was nice. This is out in the front of the Abbey. And here we have the front. This is the main door that you see when you see it on TV and movies. And there's this is where the kings and queens, and this is where the guests walk in and out for the weddings and the coronations. And you come out of this door, but the actual entrance is around to the left on the north side of the Abbey where you begin your tour. And this was just so amazing. If you have not been, I highly recommend going. I recommend having at least 4 hours to see everything. And if you have limited time in London, I would absolutely make time to see this, because this is very significant. This is just the first of my video series, so please go ahead and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon.